The Arctic serves as a final resting place for myriad lost entities. Vessels engulfed by ice, civilizations entombed under ages of frost, and aircraft that disappear without leaving a trace. Flight AE-17 epitomized such enigmas for 4 decades. A passenger jet that vanished on Christmas Eve, 1976, with no wreckage or SOS to hint at its fate, only an eerie void. That changed recently when a satellite detected a metallic irregularity deep within Alaska's ice. Excavators believed they had located the aircraft at last, but anomalies emerged as they dug deeper. Unusual patterns etched in the ice, inexplicable tracks, and unsettling eyes peering from the icy wilderness. The secrets buried in that plain unveiled not merely a tale of endurance, but an even more bewildering saga that challenged the natural order. The revelations unearthed didn't just clarify a long-standing enigma, they altered everything. Michael Ford lingered by his office window in Anchorage, observing the snowflakes meandering down past the pane. At 58, he was a seasoned veteran in the study of Alaska's brutal terrain, yet the satellite images unfurled on his desk were unlike anything he'd encountered in over 30 years of research. Initially dismissed as a standard procedure, the metallic blip detected by military satellites in January 2016 had caught his deeper attention. As he pored over the initial scans, an inexplicable shiver coursed through him, unrelated to the biting cold outside. Dr. Ford, his research assistant, Anna Lee, paused at the doorway, her expression more animated than usual. The thermal imaging results just came in. You need to see this. Together, they scrutinized the fresh data. The imagery now clearly showed the distinct shape of an aircraft's tail fin embedded deeply in the ice, positioned at a precise 40-degree angle. Michael's hands shook slightly as he aligned the dimensions with known aircraft blueprints. "It matches," Anna breathed out softly. Flight AE-17, the name resonated heavily in the room. Known by every Alaskan researcher, Flight AE-17 was the passenger plane that had mysteriously disappeared on Christmas Eve 1976. 150 lives abruptly lost to the wilderness, their disappearance one of the enduring mysteries in aviation history for 40 years. "Get me Thompson at the National Science Foundation," Michael directed, his voice composed amid the weight of their discovery. "And reach out to Dr. Isabel Garcia at Wildlife Services. We're going to need her expertise." In just a few days, what began as a routine anomaly investigation escalated into one of the most extensive recovery operations in Alaskan history. The National Science Foundation expedited their funding approval, while the U.S. Air Force provided critical logistical support. Despite the rapidly assembling resources and the progress being made, Michael was gripped by a persistent intuition that they were on the verge of uncovering something much more significant than a mere crash site. Isabel Garcia entered the packed briefing room in Anchorage on a frigid January morning, her silver-streaked hair neatly braided behind her. At 62, she was a foremost expert on Alaskan wildlife behavior, especially regarding large predators. The room buzzed with an array of specialists: glaciologists, aviation historians, forensic archaeologists, and survival experts. Michael stood at the front, gesturing towards a topographical map. "The site is located about 80 miles northeast of Anchorage," he detailed. "We're facing average temperatures around minus 42 degrees Celsius and wind speeds that could reach 18 meters per second. This mission will be challenging." Isabel leaned over the satellite images, her interest piqued. "The ice field's topology is atypical," she observed, her finger tracing the anomaly in the patterns. "These formations don't align with normal glacial movements." "What's on your mind?" Michael inquired. Isabel paused, her gaze still fixed on the images. "I'm not entirely sure," she responded thoughtfully, "but based on my years of studying these patterns, when nature strays from the norm, it often indicates something significant." In the week that followed, the team geared up for the expedition. They amassed 84 tons of specialized equipment including thermal drilling units, ground-penetrating radar, mobile labs, and supplies to support a 30-person team for up to 2 months. Among them was Rick Stevens, a veteran ice pilot with 25 years of experience in Alaskan search and rescue missions. During a planning session, Rick reflected on a past event. "I remember when Flight 17 went down," he said. "I was young, but my dad was on the search team. He never really recovered from not finding them. That Christmas, he said the weather was the worst he'd ever encountered." As February dawned, the convoy embarked across the stark, frozen expanse, a line of robust vehicles making their way through the wilderness. Isabel occupied the lead vehicle alongside Michael, her gaze tirelessly sweeping across the icy landscape. A sense of unease gnawed at her, triggered by the peculiar snowdrifts and the odd formations in the ice. Suddenly, Isabel commanded, "Stop!" Her urgent tone caused Michael to quickly signal the rest of the convoy to halt. She pointed towards a patch of snow that looked innocuous to the untrained eye. "Notice the shift in the surface texture here? It's why you don't see animal tracks crossing this area." Upon closer examination, the team discovered a hidden ice cavity large enough to potentially engulf one of their vehicles. Isabel's sharp observation not only prevented a potential disaster, but also piqued curiosity about her quick detection skills. With a modest smile, she shared, "Years of studying predator behavior. They always leave signs, as long as you know what to look for." Within 18 hours, the team had set up a fortified base camp, transforming a swath of icy wilderness into a temporary village of sturdy tents and portable buildings capable of enduring the harsh Arctic climate. The crash site was tantalizingly close, marked by the faint outline of an aircraft's tail fin jutting out from the ice. During their initial survey of the area, the team encountered an unexpected sight: a bobcat. The appearance of this animal was notably out of place. While bobcats are not strangers to Alaska, they generally inhabit more wooded areas. Yet here was a large female bobcat, accompanied by 2 nearly adult cubs, moving with surprising confidence across the barren ice field. "Remarkable," Isabel murmured, her eyes fixed through the binoculars as she watched the bobcats. "They've adapted incredibly well to these conditions." She noted the size of their paws, unusually large for bobcats, suggesting further adaptation to the snowy environment. The trio maintained a consistent, cautious distance from the camp, neither approaching too close nor showing signs of fear. What intrigued Isabel most was their behavior around the crash site. The mother bobcat paced specific areas with purposeful precision, her cubs closely mimicking her path, stepping exactly where she stepped. They carefully avoided the weaker sections of the ice, displaying a keen awareness of their surroundings. Isabel paused, her thought trailing off, but the implication was clear to everyone. The bobcat's movements appeared to intuitively chart safe routes through the dangerous ice, offering valuable clues to the team. The actual salvage was an arduous task. Engineers meticulously implemented thermal technology, ensuring not to disrupt the fragile equilibrium of the ice. Each step was deliberate, each action precisely executed. Bobcats were ever present, soon becoming known among the crew as the guides. Upon accessing the aircraft's main body, everyone was momentarily halted by the sight. The interior was impeccably preserved, echoing the ghostly echoes of Christmas Eve, 1976. Magazines were still open on the seatback trays, their pages caught mid-flip. Flight attendant carts remained in the aisle, with coffee cups neatly positioned on top, now solid cylinders of ice. However, it was the personal items that evoked the most profound emotions. A child's doll with meticulously braided yarn hair, a wallet filled with photos of beaming families, and unsent letters. Each artifact narrated a story. Each belonged to a life that was abruptly put on hold. In the cockpit, the captain's logbook was discovered, its last entry briefly noting the failure of multiple engines and worsening weather. Even more telling was a flight attendant's diary found in a storage compartment. The diary, chronicling 18 days post-crash, depicted scenes of incredible bravery amidst tragic circumstances. December 25, 1976. Dawn breaks, if you can call this faint light dawn. Only 22 of us survived out of 150. The crash was catastrophic, yet the true enemy proved to be the cold. Many succumbed to it in their sleep that first night. We have huddled together in the first-class section. It remained more intact and is easier to keep warm. Captain Robinson is taking charge, carefully distributing what little emergency supplies we have. Emily, the other flight attendant who made it, tirelessly works to provide some solace. How do you offer comfort to those who have lost everything on Christmas Day? December 27, 1976. The radio is dead. No signs of rescue. Captain Robinson estimates we're at least 100 miles off course from our last known position. The storm that downed us was beyond anything he'd ever encountered. It knocked every instrument out of whack. Occasionally, we hear animals outside. Odd sounds, not wolves, something different. December 30th, 1976. We're down to 19 now. The cold is excruciating. Emily pointed out something peculiar today. There are tracks in the snow around the plane that seem to deter other predators. Captain Robinson suspects we might have crashed in the domain of large cats. Oddly enough, that thought brings us some comfort. January 5th, 1977. Now only 12 remain. We've run out of emergency supplies. Emily didn't wake up this morning. Strangely, we discovered fresh kills near the plane. Rabbits, small game, as if something is deliberately leaving them for us. Captain Robinson dismisses it as impossible, but we've moved beyond disbelief in the improbable. The diary entries continued, their dates becoming less certain, yet their record of events remained vivid. The last entry, dated January 11th, 1977, read, "I'm the last one now. The others have all passed, but I'm not alone. They're out there. I can see their eyes in the darkness, not menacing but observing, waiting. I've come to realize why they've remained nearby. They are the protectors of this land. They understand survival here, the loss of family here. The mother cat brought another rabbit today. I was too weak to retrieve it. I think she knew. She stayed in the snow for hours, just watching me. Fear has left me. When the end arrives, I know I won't be facing it by myself." Isabel spent days poring over the diary entries, comparing them with known patterns of bobcat behavior. These cats, she told Michael one evening, are exhibiting traits that surpass typical territorial actions. The diary notes that they brought food to the crash site. We've observed similar behaviors in modern times. She presented him with photos of small animal carcasses positioned at regular intervals around the excavation site. Initially, they thought these were merely discarded prey, but the strategic placement suggested otherwise. They're always placed where they're easily visible, consistently during our meal times. The team's wildlife photographers had recorded remarkable footage of the bobcats. The mother would often appear at the periphery of the work area just as hazardous weather approached, displaying clear signs of distress until the team sought shelter. Her cubs would mimic her actions, adopting behaviors that appeared to be taught across generations. "You're suggesting these are descendants of the same cats mentioned in the diary?" Michael asked, a mix of skepticism and curiosity in his voice. "Bobcats typically live 10 to 12 years in the wild," Isabel responded. "So, we're talking about 4 or 5 generations down the line. But yes, I think these cats are the descendants of the ones present at the crash. And I believe they've inherited more than just territory. They've inherited specific behaviors." As the excavation continued, the evidence increasingly corroborated the diary's accounts. The arrangement of supplies and bodies indicated a well-organized survival strategy. Small food caches, spaced at intervals around the crash site, contained preserved remains of small game, attesting to a sustained effort at survival. However, the most extraordinary discovery emerged 6 weeks into the project. While examining ice core samples, Anna Chen observed an anomaly in the layers. "These striations," she explained to Michael and Isabel, "they're not random. Observe the pattern. It appears as if something repeatedly traversed the same paths around the crash site, etching grooves into the ice over the years." Further analysis unveiled decades of layered tracks, generations of bobcats adhering to the routes pioneered by their ancestors. The patterns aligned perfectly with the safe paths currently used by the bobcats to navigate the icy terrain, illustrating their ongoing vigil over the site. Isabel came to realize that for over 40 years, these cats had been guardians of this place. The recovery operation wrapped up in late March. The remains of Flight AE-17's passengers and crew, along with their personal effects preserved in the ice for 4 decades, were finally returned to their families. The diary, now a significant artifact of aviation history, was donated to the Smithsonian Institution. However, it was the story of the bobcats that captivated the public imagination far beyond expectations. Wildlife documentaries were produced, research papers written, and the crash site turned into a focal point for scientists exploring animal behavior and intelligence. Isabel Garcia dedicated the rest of her career to this phenomenon. She set up a research station near the crash site to continue observing the bobcats' ongoing presence and behavior. Even after the excavation equipment was removed, the mother and her cubs lingered, adhering to their ancestral routines. 5 years post-discovery, Isabel sat in her modest research station, observing the latest generation of cubs mastering the paths walked by their forebears. The aging mother bobcat, now with a graying muzzle, still conducted her daily patrols and continued to bring small offerings to the memorial established at the site. Michael Ford, who is now semi-retired, joined her to mark the anniversary of the rescue. As they observed the sunset casting hues of pink and gold across the ice, Isabel spoke gently. "You know what I think? I believe that the original mother bobcat saw something in those survivors. She didn't just see them as prey or threats, but as fellow beings trying to endure in a tough world. It seems she passed this understanding down through her lineage." Michael agreed. "A legacy of empathy." "It's more than that," Isabel continued. "It's a reminder that even in our bleakest times, we are never truly isolated. Those passengers in their final days were comforted by the sight of these noble animals. And for 40 years, these bobcats have maintained their watch, safeguarding the site, identifying safe paths, and presenting their tributes." Right then, as if responding to their conversation, the mother bobcat appeared at the periphery of their vision, her cubs playfully following her in the snow. She stopped briefly, locking eyes with Isabel, sharing that enigmatic look that had intrigued researchers for decades. "Some might argue it's anthropomorphizing," Michael pondered, "attributing human traits to animals." "Or perhaps," Isabel countered, "we're just beginning to understand that compassion isn't solely a human trait, that in this severe yet stunning wilderness, all creatures are linked by something that transcends what science can fully capture." The bobcat ushered her cubs along a trail carved out by countless generations before them. Their footsteps echoed the patterns left in the snow, embedding deep grooves into the landscape. As they vanished into the evening's embrace, their outlines momentarily framed against the Arctic sky, Isabel reflected on the last entry of the flight attendant's diary. "I'm not afraid anymore. When the end comes, I won't be alone." In the ensuing years, the narrative of Flight AE-17 and its feline protectors evolved beyond a mere account of disaster and endurance. It transformed into a profound acknowledgement of the unspoken connections among all beings, illustrating that even in the loneliest corners of the globe, compassion can find a place to thrive. Through the ages, the bobcats persisted, adjusting to the shifting environment and passing down the knowledge of the old trails to each new generation. On tranquil nights, under the dance of the aurora borealis, they could still be seen patrolling, timeless sentinels of a realm where the lines between human and beast, between despair and hope, had merged into something sublime. Researchers continued to examine the site and its exceptional inhabitants, yet some enigmas lingered unresolved. Maybe that's fitting. A nod to the vast expanses of Alaska, a place filled with tales that elude our grasp, connections that surpass our definitions, and instances of grace that resonate across generations, for both humans and animals. Now, a modest plaque at the crash site honors not only the passengers and crew of Flight AE-17, but also the extraordinary animals that have safeguarded them for nearly 50 years. The plaque carries a straightforward tribute. In remembrance of the 150 individuals on Flight AE-17, December 24, 1976, and to honor the unexpected guardians who showed us that compassion is limitless and that we are never alone, even in our darkest moments. The bobcats continue to traverse their traditional routes, embodying a living tribute to a time when the boundary between human and animal softened, allowing something deep and enigmatic to flourish amidst the frost and snow. Their tale still captivates researchers, wildlife aficionados, and global visitors, a testament that in the stark allure of the Alaskan wilds, certain connections defy the constraints of time, species, and even mortality. As Isabel Garcia noted in her final research paper before her retirement, through our study of the bobcats associated with Flight AE-17, we've unearthed deep insights into the essence of compassion and remembrance. These animals have shown us that the ability to empathize and protect is not confined by species or the passage of time. They teach us that in a world growing ever more fragmented, simply acknowledging and addressing the distress of others, no matter their guise, is perhaps the most pure reflection of life's inherent unity. The mother bobcat and her cubs persist in their daily activities, serving as a living testament to this truth. In their vigilant eyes, onlookers still perceive traces of something both ancient and wise, a legacy of compassion transmitted across generations that continues to affect and transform everyone who comes across it.